informative and contains my opinion and understanding of the subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. How's everyone doing today? Welcome, everyone. I didn't get to say hi to everyone yet in chat. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Cuff You. Who else is here? Dr. Schultz is in the house, y'all. I told you she'd be back. Oh, thank you, Sarah. You're the best. Let me see. Help that algorithm. Absolutely. Everybody hit like and subscribe. Sarah, thank you so much. Oh, my God. Look, we got gifted memberships. That's so nice of you, Sarah. There's a couple of them, too. Sarah. Oh, my God. You're the best. Hi, Harlot. Hi, Ember. Hi, Coca-Cola. Nice name. Like it. Fancy Nancy's here. Truth's here. Oh, good. We have all the peoples in the house. Let me pull up my notes real quick. I made notes. So I have to be honest with you guys. I forgot what theories we were doing. So I just like covered some of them. And I figured that, you know, I could still do the door call. Hi, Esty. Oh, look at all the people that showed up for you, Dr. Schultz. They like literally love you here.
I love them.
My bangs like
I love you.
Yes. Sarah especially. Sarah loves you. Hi, Belladonna. Oh, people are just rolling in. I'm going to give it a second. Oh, you guys, did you notice that the background's different? So, hold on. Let me show you. I was playing around with this last night. So, you guys, we could either do this, or we could do the old-fashioned guy, or we have this guy. He looks like I downloaded the new guy and was like, he looks a little strange. Yeah, no, right? So, do we just keep it on this one? Or do we go back to our old one?
Either one, just not the last one that you did.
Love it. Okay, cool. All right, my notes. Back to what I was doing. Oh my God, I ran out of clothes. I'm down the shore still. And I mean, my mom's got a laundry machine and stuff, but I feel like when I looked at the lives, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I have anything else down here that I haven't worn. So that's why I'm wearing this, you guys. I don't even know what's happening, but whatever. I'm going to the Wu-Tang concert tomorrow. So excited.
So funny.
I know. We're like so different, you guys. Anya, I can't see you at the Wu-Tang
I'm a
concert.
Wu-Tang
I mean,
fan.
am I wrong?
I'm not sure if I'm going to their concert.
You are?
I did grow up in the 90s.
Oh.
So I am definitely a fan.
Yes, you did. Oh, yes. Well, I'm definitely going to the concert, and I am so excited. We got our tickets like forever ago. All my friends are going. I got my Wu-Tang shirt. I'm ready to go. Okay, so you guys, last time we were here, we were looking at Elliot Rodger, and we were, excuse me, we were breaking down his behavior. And then towards the end of our live, Dr. Schultz said something about psychoanalytic theory. And I remembered social cognitive theory is one I thought. Psychodynamic theory, social cognitive theory, personality. Was it Adler?
I talked a little bit about Jungian archetype.
Jungian, that's who it was. I'm like, wait, who was the other one that she was talking about? And then there was one other one, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Did I get them?
Object Relations.
Oh, Object Relations
by Melanie Klein.
See, I have a really good memory. I have a good memory. Okay, because I definitely should have written them down, and I probably did, but I don't know where I put the paper, so that's a problem. But it's okay because I got this. I am ready to go. I'm ready to go. Ooh. All right, I got it. So I got my Elliot Rodger. Oh, I have slides too. I forgot.
Cool.
Shit. How about that? They're like corny. They're just like whatever, but they're still. I figured like to have something in the background. Like I did the different.
Yeah.
Let me see if we can pull it up real quick. But anyway, to start us off, you guys, what we were doing was we were, Dr. Schultz brought up about theory, and I stopped her and said, wait a minute, this could be a whole live in itself. So then we both got really excited about it. And I think Sarah's the one that said dork off, which we both got really excited for because we're both like happy nerds. Slides. Oh, come on. Can you redo? All right. Here we go. My link expired, but I got it. I just redid it. It's coming through right now. And if not, then we can just wing it without it. But let's see.
So while you bring that up, the weirdest thing happened. So I was at my sister's the other day and babysitting her kids, and they had Tamron Hall on. So she's like, she has a show, and it was all about the incel community. And I thought it was just so weird that it came on, and I didn't realize how big of a problem this apparently is for teenage boys right now. And they went into so much detail, especially in the Black community. They're seeing this, you know, combined with their culture. And there was a whole bunch of different like phrases that they were using that I didn't even recognize were a thing for that community, like red pilling. So apparently,
what's
like red pilling is like, it signifies a shift in perspective, and it often shows that you're embracing a worldview that is very critical of mainstream media. So like that was one of them. There was another thing called the manosphere. That's the whole
that I have heard of. Tell me what that is again, but I've heard of that.
So that's what the online network is referred to, where it aims at men and boys across all of the different social media aspects, where they're producing these negative emotions to pull these young boys in to basically hate the societal norms, especially against women and like the chads and stuff like that. So I thought it was like, I was like, so weird how, and I didn't even put two and two together because they actually talked about a Netflix mini series. I don't know if any of you saw it, called The Adolescent.
No, but I'm going to know it.
So good because it was basically this fictional story, but there was a guy who works for Montclair University, a doctor who does research in social cultures and how, like, I guess the downfall of social culture in young men and all this kind of things. And he says everything in that movie, even though it was a fictional movie, was completely true. So if you guys haven't seen The Adolescent, it's a great representation of a 13-year-old boy who ends up killing a classmate because of this type of misogyny.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that I was like getting all this information just like babysitting the other day. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to remember this. So, but Tamron Hall's video on it was excellent.
Do you remember like the boys were like idolizing this Andrew Tate? Yeah. Our secretary's grandson was idolizing Andrew Tate. And it was annoying her, like, of course it would, anybody, but it was annoying her especially because he was like getting the wrong message from it. And the thing is that he, just like other people, were vulnerable to the message to begin with. And that's where the problem lies. So it was less about the actual, well, it's about the message too, but it's more about the fact that they were even able to be influenced, right, by this person who, I didn't get the whole thing, but I got that he was a misogynist. And that's like the online radicalization of boys. And I think Sarah or somebody wrote that, and that's exactly what it is. So if you guys think about like ISIS and stuff like that, the reason that, and this is my opinion, of course, but the reason that this would look attractive to young boys would be in a society where now it's getting harder and harder to meet people. It's taking longer and longer for people to have sex for the first time, and then the longer they wait, the more they feel like intimidated by it. So then that could, make it go on longer and longer. But with that being said, they're not alone. There's a whole generation of these kids that are feeling lonely. And also we're putting them in a culture where, when my mom, like when she was parenting, you always saw like your kids, like they did better than their parents and their parents did better than their parents. And we're like the first generation that's not doing better necessarily than our parents did. So I think it's like the degradation of society with that. I haven't found somebody to be in a relationship with, whether it be a male, female, whatever the case may be. What would you add to that? Do you agree with that?
I think the other big thing is you didn't have immediate access to these types of communities. When we grew up in the 90s, we're outside playing with our friends. So unless our next door neighbor was an incel, I would have never have known anything about that type of stuff because the internet was just not a thing. And so now that
You're
they're
right.
constantly online, I even listen to my nephews. They talk about Squid Games. They're 7 and 6. They know nothing about Squid Games, but they think they do because they watch YouTube videos or, they kid it. They dumb it down to kid version and they're wanting to play these games, not
Yes.
understanding what's happening. And I think the
Oh
same
my
thing
God. I agree with
happens
that.
in this culture at 13, 14 years old. It's just built
We're
around
being
you.
validated.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. So like this guy's professor at Montclair University is named Bond Benton. And he basically says what happens is you're having some sort of negative emotion. You go online, they're integrating more negative emotions, which is easier for us to grasp. And then they're being validated with these negative emotions through the communities in which they're looking at. So the cycle just spirals until now they completely see society as this ugly, misogynistic, needing type of environment instead of what the reality actually is. And it starts to split the reality.
That was so well said. I agree with all of that. I agree with all that. And again, I think that, like you said, the thing that this comes to the heart of is even if people, like a lot of people here followed Dr. Mercado, and he's the author of The New Evil, which you have to read. I'll have to you have to read it. It's amazing. But a big part of it is how we've gotten more and more more and more sadistic and stuff like that over time because like you said, you have a thought, you could go online, find validation for that thought. And now, there's other people that have that thought. So you're like, I'm not alone. So this thought isn't so bad. So you're less likely to challenge it. Right. So it's like, and then if you have, we're being brought up right now in a society where for most people it's okay. But when we were born into like certain molds. Like I was already Catholic when I was born. I was already a female. I was Italian. I had these like roles, and I feel like those roles helped me with my identity. And I think now we have a breakdown of roles as far as like you can identify with many things, right? It's not just boy or girl, or it's not just one thing or the other gender. So you can identify with many things. And for somebody that has a problem with that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like that nuance, right? That could be overwhelming for them and can crash something like an identity or make them not feel that identity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in addition to, I feel like we were built with coping skills when we were younger, and we were taught how to see some of our emotions, where now we just allow everyone to have every emotion, which is not what we should be doing. And that's why if you let every emotion get to you, this is why we see the rise in anxiety, the rise in depression, and these types of thought processes on these young men, because nobody's there saying, don't do that. A lot of parents are saying, live your best life, instead of, well, let's live our best life, but we also have to control that life to fit society in some aspect.
It makes sense. And earlier I said, no, you're right. And earlier I said about the identity thing. I think I said Elliot Rodgers. I meant Bryan Kohberger has a lack of identity. So I think maybe for him, like he was a big guy, and then he was like really small. Like so he wasn't fitting into one role or the other. And that nuance is like now he's not identifying with anything, at least in that situation. And then it's just with a lot of things. Like he wasn't able to find a balance of anything. It seems like. Right. Let's see what we have over here. So. Right. No, you're right. Fancy Nancy says, my kids are 27 and 23 and very different perspectives on things due to social media, cell phones, and the internet. That being said, is that I limited their exposure and monitored their phones. That's such a good one. My oldest child I didn't get her a cell phone until she was like 11 or 12, which is still really young. But that was just have a cell phone in her room in Philadelphia. I feel like you had to have a cell phone at some point. But then Ava, cell phones were more socially acceptable when Ava was like 10, and she's like very mature for her age. And I remember my sister being like, just get her a phone. And I'm like, no. So like, I literally waited. I was the meanest mom at the time, but it's like, whatever. I stuck to, it's harder to be a good parent sometimes. Yeah. Shelly says, luckily my son grew up prior to this influence, but my one son could have been Susceptible. See, so there you go. Thank you, Shelly. So what Shelly's saying is that her kids didn't grow up in this time, but she could see her son's personality as him being somebody that would have or could have been susceptible to this type of talk. Thank you for being honest. So let's see what else we have. Oh yeah, Truth didn't have a cell phone until 2008. Remember we had beepers?
I had pager. Yep.
Yeah, I had a pager. All right, so let me bring this up real quick since I keep talking. All right, let me share my slides. All right, which one am I sharing? I don't know if this is, yeah, there goes the slides. Oh, you guys, I was playing around with this last night and I did it to where now I don't have to come back and then put it on the stage. It just pops up. So that worked. So that's good. All right, let me make this bigger. Hide the side. All right, what's this look like? Oh, good. We're good. So that way we have like something up on the screen while we're talking. All right. So again, we're talking about Elliot Rodger. And we're talking about different theoretical frameworks as far as Rodger goes. So with that being said, I'm just pulling my notes up. Here we go. I got it. All right. It's just like one little page of notes, but it still has something. Okay. So starting out with psychoanalytic theory, I guess we should just like preface what this is. So for people out there, this is Sigmund Freud, right? So you might hear this as psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, psychoanalysis. There's a few things you might hear it as, but we're talking about Sigmund Freud here. We're talking about the unconscious versus the conscious thought process, things like defense mechanisms, so on and so forth. So what do I have over here? Let me see what I wrote over here. I wrote unconscious drives and childhood conflicts. So that's a big one. Freud was someone that believed in your childhood having an effect on your adulthood, which I truly believe too, and I believe so do you. Rodger, I put possible unresolved Oedipal conflict, narcissistic defenses, and fantasy to manage humiliation. So let's go back to these one at a time. So the first one, so you start us off on something too. So I said a little bit there. What would you say?
So I think he also has a lot of repressed anger. So if we're talking about defense mechanisms, there's definitely a repression that's happening since he has so much anger towards women and peers, but it doesn't seem to manifest until a little bit later when he's actually starting the dating and all of that kind of stuff. I also said he has some projected blame, and that's why we start to see his behavior change onto women and the chads. And then I said he has an ego imbalance. So you have this idea where he has an inflated ego, but his reality portion of that ego is very weak. And so you have this battle between the ego and which allows the id, which is basically our pleasure principle that I want in life to overtake his reality.
Absolutely. So you guys, the id, ego, and superego, your id is your basic instinct. Your superego is like your morals and social norms. And then the ego is somewhere in the middle. Some of us lean more towards our id, others more towards your superego. So for example, you're on a diet, you walk in a house and there's your favorite chocolate chip cookies. Your id is like, go eat them. Your superego is like, no, don't do that. Like, you know, you're worth it. Don't do that. You've been doing so good on your diet, da, 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 da. And then your ego is what you do. Some of us might take a bite and then, you know, throw the rest of the cookie out. Others might be like, oh, I'll just have 3 as opposed to the whole plate. And then other people might cover it up and be like, I don't even want to look at it. So like we might all do different things. But when we say the id, ego, and superego, that's what we're referring to. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me see what I wrote here. So then to add to that, I put, when it comes to the defense mechanisms, I put, rationalization. He rationalized a lot of his bad behavior. So rationalization, you guys, is when you justify behaviors or feelings with logical reasonings to avoid a true explanation or to avoid that, you know, why you're doing it. So in Rodger's case, he rationalized violence as a retribution for social injustices he believed had been committed against him. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I also put possible denial. So he was minimizing or ignoring his personal shortcomings or social difficulties. So one thing I think we saw with Rodger is that he would say, I went to a party tonight and it happened again. Nobody talked to me. I'm like, cuz, why don't you go talk to someone? And then think about it, right? So now he's not engaging. So now he's the person in the party that's just sitting there, watching people? Like, and then you wonder why nobody's going to come up and start a conversation with you. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like, so was he in denial about this? Could it have been partially, like, could have been autism? Maybe he wasn't getting the social. What do you think?
I definitely think the autism played into how he perceived the situations. And I think that probably led, because again, if nobody paid attention to his autism, if nobody helped him build the skills that some of these people with autism need to recognize social cues or work on that, it kind of just led him to this fantasy life. So he wasn't going to be in those things normally.
You're right. And it's funny you say that, because I next wrote fantasy, and I said that he retreats into imaginary worlds to escape painful realities or to achieve gratification. In Rodger's case, he fantasized about domination, revenge, and achieving an idealized status where women would worship him and men would envy him, which was an escape from perceived social rejection. So again, everything was everybody else's fault, which we also see with narcissism, right?
Yep.
Like nothing was his fault. It was always somebody else's fault. It was, and we'll see that plays out in like his, he, on one hand, he like idolizes his dad. And then on the other hand, he hates his dad because he's like jealous of him. Mm-hmm. So we see that play out there too. All right. So for defense mechanisms, that's what I had there. Let's see what else I have here. Narcissistic defense and fantasy to manage humiliation. So again, a lot of what he did was blame other people for what was going on in his life, or it was this person's fault that this was happening, or it was his stepmom's fault that he was in Malaysia and he hated it. Like, so it was just always somebody else's fault. He never took responsibility for anything. Mm-hmm. What else what other things would you say?
So with the defense mechanisms, I actually thought there was an escalation in his defense mechanisms, like you were talking about, but I almost feel like his rationalization turned into fantasy, where he became godlike. That godlike mentality ended up becoming displacement, and that's when his rage went towards society. And then there was this idea of a failed sublimation. So he really couldn't turn all of the frustration that he had into anything creative or pro-social. So he went the opposite way with it, with the displacement. So there was a lot of, I thought, back and forth, but also building on the defense mechanisms. When things started, he noticed that things failed basically for him and was like, these people are crazy. Okay. And that's when the fantasy came in. And then the fantasy got so strong that displacement had to come in, and so on and so on.
I totally agree with you. I also, when it came to projection, I put here that he blamed women in society at large for his feelings of inadequacy, perceiving them as conspiring to reject and humiliate him. This is likely reflected on his own self-hatred and insecurities projected outward. So that's pretty much what you said too. Yeah. I also put splitting here. So this is a primitive defense, so it's closely tied to object relations theory. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe we go into that one next. This could be like our little transition into that, but this would be viewing people or situations as good or all bad with no middle ground. So it's like that black and white thinking, like you're good or you're bad, or it's like this or that. In Rodger's case, his writings show extreme idolization of women he desired and devaluation when they rejected him. So good women he longed for became bad when they did not reciprocate. So you guys, let me say that again real quick, just that last part. So good women he longed for became bad when they did not reciprocate. So he would see somebody, and even he would go, do you remember he would go like, he would take a video of himself looking at a couple and he'd be like, I came here to look at the sunset and these two people ruined it. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, what's that now? What's happening? So Sarah asks, is this cognitive dissonance? So I don't know exactly which part you were asking about cognitive dissonance, but let me tell you guys real quick in case anybody's out there and they don't know what that is. Cognitive is your thought process. Dissonance is when you hold two alternate beliefs about the same situation. So for example, you know that smoking leads to lung cancer, but you still smoke. That's cognitive dissonance. Or you love and hate your dad because he's your dad, so you love him, but you hate him because he always says he's coming on Saturday and never shows up. That would be cognitive dissonance. So again, it's just having two conflicting thoughts about the same topic. What would you add?
Which I do think he does here. This idea of I want to be wanted by someone, but at the same time, I know that they're just horrendous people type of
Yes.
mentality.
Exactly, because it's always somebody else's fault. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Okay, so let me go to the next thing. So we went into object relations. Let me just see which one that is over here. Oh, look, it's the next one. How about that? So object relations, you guys, is internalized caregiver relationships shape future bonds. So Rodger, bad objects, alienation, distorted attachment. So let's talk about this.
Yep.
You wanna-
So I think
what would
it's
you-
because of his failed attachments that objects relations theory kind of works here. Especially particularly with women, he couldn't form this stable sense of self. So now this internalized object that he has about women now is being externalized in the idea of blame, revenge fantasies, in an attempt to basically restore his ego. So an object is not necessarily physical, but more of an internal representation of how you see these attachments and situations progressing in your own reality.
Absolutely. And he definitely had an insecure attachment. And this led all the way back to, with both parents. So, and I definitely agree with that. We could do an entire, just evening on just about attachment. Attachment is because I think attachment and identity ultimately attach or connect to each other. So I think we could do a whole show just on that, which maybe we should sometime because, and even Harvard does an adult attachment style quiz that I give my students in class. Of course, they don't have to take it. It's if they want, but they usually all do it. But I could always do something like put it in the chat and people could take their own adult attachment style quiz and then we could talk about that too. But to keep it pretty surface level here, which is hard for me to do. But I agree with you. I put that as early relationships with caregivers internalized as templates for future bonds. So you guys, this is with anyone. So you have an internal working model, which is your how you feel about yourself. So I'm worthy of being loved. I'm worthy of loving other people, or I'm not worthy of being loved, or I'm not worthy of loving other people. But that internal working model is something that continues throughout, your development and especially your formative years. So a lack of attachment or an insecure attachment would definitely play a role. But I think we're going to see here, right, that it's all of these things together that I don't know that just one of these things would have done it. I think it's a mixture of all these different parts that we're putting together, that they all came together in a way that he wasn't able to articulate or understand it.
Yeah.
I also
probably
put that
due to the autism too.
Yes.
Not being under. Yeah.
Great point. I put that his worldview suggests internalized bad objects, seeing others, especially women, as rejecting and persecutory. So, and also, right, seeing women as, he would say, I want a blonde. Yeah. What does that even mean? Do you know what I mean? I know what that means, but I'm saying, what does that even mean as far as that there's no personality characteristic in that at all. So you just want a blonde, you know what I mean? So he was very shallow in that sense where I don't even think he realized okay, that's great. You want a blonde, but what personality characteristic do you like? And I think that he was so detached in that way that he wasn't even able to think that far. It was just, I want a blonde and blondes reject me.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. So difficulty forming secure attachments and pervasive alienation. So that was another thing. So every time that there was an opportunity for him to form an attachment with someone, he tended to withdraw, or he just didn't see the person for a while. And then he would have this paranoid thought process, oh, they don't like me, or they're making fun of me, or whatever the case may be. And again, or I'm at the party and nobody's talking to me, so therefore, they're bad and they're alienating me, so on and so forth. So I think that
that time in the video that you showed where he was driving around and just pointing at people and being like, they would never date me and they're stupid, and you're like, you don't even know them.
That's
you didn't even speak to them.
And he wasn't even a horrible looking, I wouldn't have really but he
was
bad.
Not the most hideous thing on the planet. So
no.
I think in the last video, I think I had mentioned, I thought this is where personality and what your idea on how we develop a personality could come from. Because for me, I find that it's a 50-50 split between, genetics and also this idea of environment. And so if you had a genetic basis for a narcissistic trait to begin with, maybe what you were giving off was not inviting for other people. And then now their responses cultivated the bigger engagement of this progression of your personality. So it's
100%.
this may have just been here the whole time, and it just was cultivated by all of these different experiences.
That's exactly what I was trying to say earlier. That was so well said. Sarah says external locus of control.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. That's pretty much what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that everything that happens to you is somebody else's fault, and you never, like I'm someone who does more internal locus of control. Feel like I have control over the things that I want to accomplish, that I want to take in, all that kind of stuff. He definitely does not have that same type of locus of control, and he's always blaming others for his issues. So definitely Sarah.
And part of that goes back to the narcissism as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, social cognitive theory. Social cognitive theory. Let's talk about this real quick. So with social cognitive theory, you guys, this is like Albert Bandura, if any of you have heard him, the Bobo doll experiment, stuff like that. Wait, anyone can get a girlfriend. He just couldn't get the girls he wanted. He was a snob. So Claire, it's ironic that you say that, because that's what I was saying about Kohberger, right? It wasn't that he couldn't get a girl. He just couldn't get the girl that he seemed fit for him. So if you guys look, that really pretty Asian girl that was so smart and she seemed so caring and stuff, like, she even goes to him to like help her when she thinks that her house gets broken into or her apartment, and here they think it was him. So it wasn't that he couldn't get a girlfriend, he just couldn't get the girls that he wanted. With Elliot Rodger, I see it a little bit different in that I feel like he didn't even like, where with Kohberger, I feel like these other girls kind of came onto him a little bit. I don't know of any girls that came onto Elliot like that. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I almost feel like he built this persona that never allowed him to have these girls, because I am sure there is some shy, introverted girl out there that would have found him attractive, where they could have had some commonality on some level. But I think, like you said, he had this vision of someone specific, from whatever it dwelled from, the first woman who ruined his life, whatever, that he was kind of matching.
Yeah, so that girl too, Maddie or whatever, that he was and that's another thing. So like he just assumed that because he had like a play date, Maddie, growing up, that means she was like going to be into him or something. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of it, like, could his parents have taught him more about, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if that was my daughters, I would have been like, look, like, not everybody's going to like you. You're not going to like everybody else. Like, that's okay. Eventually you'll find somebody that you like, that likes you back and stuff like that. But I feel like how much of this did his parents just ignore altogether? And then that left him in, like, same thing with Kohberger's case. We didn't know. We still don't know so many details that people are just filling in the blanks. So I'm assuming that same thing's happening here too. He's filling in the blanks and nobody's really teaching him. Like his dad, and again, his dad didn't seem like a bad parent. He was just very busy and he was really stressed trying to make money to keep the family afloat and da-da-da-da. So I do think, that had a huge effect on him. Don't you think, like his dad being so busy and not being around?
Oh, definitely. There seems to be a loss of authority somewhere within the dynamics.
Totally agree. So with social cognitive theory, this is emphasis on observational learning, modeling, and reinforcement. So we were just talking about the dad and the modeling that mom and dad did, right? And even the stepmom, he thought that the stepmom was like out of her lane, or, because she was trying to do acting and stuff. And he's like, who do you think you are trying to act? When it's like, wait, what? Like, so he just completely, he felt like, I don't know. What would you say about modeling for him? Because I just talked about his dad with modeling. So what would you add to that? Or
like, I feel like I think this goes back to how we understand culture and society, because if we think about the modeling culture, people automatically assume all of those people are beautiful. All those people must be liked. All those people must be popular. They must also be living this best life. And if he ends up going that route, but that's not the experience that he's having, now, again, he's confused. Be like, now I can blame them double time, because you should be loving me because I look like this and I wear this and I do this and you're not. So it's you that's the problem.
Exactly. And the fact that like he just, I don't know. Again, like I don't know. It's a shame that nobody ever saw his videos, because I feel like they were, talk about a red flag.
Yeah.
I put that Rodger deeply engaged with online incel subculture, reinforcing maladaptive beliefs. So again, it's that feeling of getting validated by an outside group. And it's like, I'm not the only person that thinks this way. Like, see, there's these other guys out there. And I don't know if people know this, but the incel community was created by a female. So you have to look it up. A female started the incel community, and then it like quickly like steered away from her story and focused in on, you know, the males and stuff. Hi, Becky. Hi, everybody. Hi, Cuff you and other people in chat if I didn't get to you. I also put low self-efficacy in social and romantic context. Clearly. Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. So with social cognitive theory, you guys, I think that he had a reinforced entitlement, right? So he would, you know, he went to the big movie premieres and stuff, and on his dad's side and his mom's side, right? So his mom was dating George Lucas at one point, and his dad was one of the directors on the Hunger Games. So he was able to get these, like, you know, he was entitled, right? So he got to like experience these things that most of his peers did not. And he was like, that was a big thing for him. Like, he's like, he couldn't wait to tell everybody that he was going to be going to the new movie or whatever. And that kind of gave him status, right?
Yeah. Okay. And in reality, if you think about how culture works, that should have given him status. So again, there's this element that's missing that we haven't quite figured out again, which I think is personality theory related.
I was going to say that brings us right into personality theory, which we both love. With personality theory, you guys, we have traits. So this would be things like, I mean, there's 10 personality disorders and 3 clusters. I go over them in different videos on my channel if anybody's interested. But for this one, we would be looking at cluster B. And we're talking about narcissistic. Oh, I don't know. Not paranoid is not cluster B, but narcissistic, histrionic, borderline, and antisocial are under cluster B. Paranoid is also a personality disorder. It's not under cluster B, however. Traits, this is what, cluster C. So this would be, I think it's important for people to know that we have traits, and that some of us, so when we do this, some of you might be like, oh, I do that, or like, oh, my mom does that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person has personality disorder, right? So we do see traits. So in order for it to be disordered, you guys, it has to interfere with 2 areas of daily functioning. And it's a pervasive thing that occurs over time. What else would you say about personality in general to like start us out that way before we get to Rodger?
I kind of already talked about it a little bit, you know, as someone who, this is where I specialize a lot of my stuff, is this 50-50 mentality. And really, it depends on what theory you believe in. And so to be safe, we kind of believe in the 50-50 where there is a genetic basis, but there is also this idea of an environmental thing. The other thing that I think it's important that people don't realize is that our personality do not do this 180 flip. It is a slow progression of building a personality rather than saying, oh, I used to be somebody else 10 years ago. You really weren't. We call it a maturation of traits. And so, for instance, I've always been extroverted, but my extroversion when I was 19 is dancing on tables and bars, having a good time. My kids probably don't appreciate that today. So my extroversionness looks a little bit different, but it doesn't mean I'm any less extroverted than when I was 19. That's such a great point. And so I've just matured it to match society, match who I believe I am as a person, those types of things. So it's not like
being age appropriate, right? So your development comes into it as well.
Correct. So there is a developmental progression of these, but it's not like, so, you know, a lot of these traits I think Rodger's had, maybe you couldn't recognize them because some of these actually blend with adolescence. And this is why we normally don't diagnose a personality disorder until you're 18 at least, because we know that your brain is still progressing, it's still developing. And you know, there were a time where I was like, oh my God, I have histrionic. No, I don't. But it felt
you histrionic. You're like the opposite of, I feel like.
I was like, oh my God, I totally had histrionic. Well, I had a lot of trauma when I was a teenager. And
I do not see you as I see you as like the opposite of the histrionic.
Now, because I've worked on myself.
So, but I think that's a good point, right? Is that it was part of your development and it was part of your external external experiences, but your internal. So epigenetics, right? So we have that internal working model as well that helped you see through that, to where so much so that today I'm like, what? Like, you thought you were histrionic, like, of all people, like, there's no way you identify with that. So it's amazing to see how, but again, that would be part of our environment, as opposed to the things that stayed stable because of personality traits.
Yeah,
that's a good
they
point.
definitely
Sarah
play with
says,
each other.
yeah, go ahead.
They
No, I
definitely
agree.
play with each other.
1,000%. Sarah says, appreciate the time and knowledge of both doctors. Welcome to the house, Dr. Schultz. So glad to have you back.
Thank you.
So there you go.
I love being here.
Just loving you. I love that. Okay, so with personality theory, for these were some of the traits that I saw in Elliot. So narcissistic was the first one I saw. And tell me, these are the ones I saw: narcissistic, paranoid, antisocial, and borderline. If you like borderline features, some of these I just see tendencies. But again, I do see narcissistic personality with him. Do you see narcissistic?
I definitely see narcissistic. I definitely see a possibility of paranoid because of the fantasies that they built. If we're going off of the new descriptions of personality disorders, paranoid personality disorder no longer exists in the upcoming DSM. That's going bye-byes. Borderline, I definitely see could be a possibility, but it's so hard with the narcissistic aspect.
Because it could be a borderline, like substate type thing.
Correct. I'm not sure if I'm there with the antisocial, because I know what you're getting at with that, because I do think he's lacking in empathy and all of that kind of stuff. But I feel like a lot of the things that would equal under antisocial would equal under the narcissism better, which would kind of
see, like the manipulation and stuff like that. I see what you're saying, like manipulation.
Right.
I see. I think I was thinking more like anti-society.
Yeah, definitely anti-society.
But again, that's a good point in that, like I was saying too, that not all of these necessarily, because I do think that there are antisocial traits. And again, none of the, like, we're not saying, I think we both agree that we both see narcissistic personality disorder. And I think some of these other things I see as traits. So paranoid traits, antisocial traits, borderline traits. And again, it's hard to diagnose the difference between narcissistic and borderline features, because we only know so much. So we only know from his manifesto, from what he published. So I think it is hard because we don't know if he's having like a borderline substate, or, you know what I mean? So that's what you were trying to say too, right?
Yeah. And then I think it even makes it more difficult that if he was alive and I was someone talking to him, if he's truly diagnosed with autism on some level, that will then also play into whether I believe these are here or not, on where on the spectrum he is. Because if he's a little bit more severe than he let on, that some of these may not be valid, but at the same time, they could be enhanced because of the autism.
Great point. Great point. For narcissistic traits, I have grandiosity, entitlement, sensitivity to criticism. So he was very sensitive to criticism. He did not take criticism well. And I call him, he would be something like an injustice filer in my eyes. I just made that up. But just like, I think of somebody with like a filing cabinet that has the word injustice on it. And he just kept filing all the injustices instead of like working through them and then putting them aside or learning something from a situation. It was like he just kept putting them in his like filing cabinet of injustices. And then at some point, it was just too much for him, and he just felt like completely rejected. At least that's what I think. Would you add anything to that?
No, I agree, because I think what happened was with that filing system, and then you go online and see that other people have that same filing system, it validates for him and then gives him that entitlement that's already there with the narcissism and elevates that, and it just becomes a hot mess.
1,000%. 1,000%. For paranoid tendencies, I put belief that women and peers excluded and mocked him. And it wasn't just a fear, you guys. It was like that was like he was paranoid about it. Like he thought that that's what was happening. So if he went to go see a sunset and people were kissing, he like thought that they like were purposely there to like destroy his night. Yeah. Which is a paranoid thought, right? Because they don't even know that he's in the background taking creepy videos.
And I think like this is such the hard thing about personality theories too, because that idea, I also think it's under paranoid, but you could cross off paranoid and have it as part of the narcissistic traits as well, because he's living his own fantasy. He thinks he's the best. How dare you ruin my perfect night because this was for me? So it personality theories.
You're right about that. I do agree with that.
Crazy.
No, I do agree with that. I totally agree with that. Which is why also too, right? We have tendencies and not disorder for all of these. Antisocial tendencies, I just put aggression, lack of empathy, manipulation, but again, that could also fall under narcissistic. And then for borderline features, I put intense rejection sensitivity, unstable self-image. So, and at the core of borderline is a fear of abandonment. And I think that we see that throughout his entire existence, right? Like he thinks he's just going to be left and nobody's ever going to love him or, you know, want to date him.
If we gave him an attachment disorder, we could then again get rid of borderline. So again, you just, you know, you would need so much more information.
Absolutely, you guys. And I think that's important. The only one here that I think I would, if I were seeing it, like if everything I knew right now, the only personality disorder at this point that I really feel comfortable saying I think he has is narcissistic. The rest of them are traits. And do you agree with that? Like, I don't see full-blown disorder of any of the other things. No. So but I do see sometimes with narcissism, we do see borderline substates. So, you know, where somebody just like explodes, you know, in that moment. So I think that, again, like you said, we don't know enough to say for sure that it's anything else. We also don't know enough to say for sure because we can't really diagnose him, but we're saying with our expertise, this is what we're saying. So I agree with all that. Anything else before I move to the next one?
Nope.
Oh, I looked up the wrong one. All right, so hold on. So that was all I had here because I didn't, I don't know what other theory you had, but I think I missed one. What was it? The
only other one that I had was the archetypes by Jung.
Gotcha. So do you want to give us a background of that a little bit, and then I'll just jump in? I don't have notes for that one.
Okay. So most of you, I'm sure, are familiar, but Jung, it believes that we have the collective unconscious, basically passed down from our ancestors. And our goal in life is to work with our archetypes and find this balance between the unconscious collective and also our conscious collective, and learn how to work peacefully with that to find our basically true self. And so I think if we're looking at his theory, he is trying to do that, but now things are getting away from him. So I thought there were like three main archetypes that he kind of fell under. The number one flat out for me is the shadow. So the shadow is like the evilest, darkest part of us. So for many of us, we always have dark things come out, right? So for instance, have you ever been like driving down the street and be like, what would happen if I hit this person, right? You're not going to, because we probably have worked with it. We don't let our shadow overtake us in any sense. Well, what happened with him though, I think he repressed his shadow for so long, and then you combined it with the ego weakness that he had. Now you let your shadow possess you and take over.
And he felt inadequate from the women not, you know, reciprocating, if you will. They didn't even know that he was into them. That unlovable feeling, right? So that internal working model, part of that is there. Also with social isolation, we saw some of that too. He had social isolation. And again, I think that also you could also see some of the narcissistic things here too, such as like the aggression from feeling like grandiose or godlike, if you will. So I think one of the big things, you guys, that I think we should pull together with all of this is that these are all theories. And at some point of time, like, you know, back in the day, we might have clung onto one of these theories and debated each other like, no, it's this theory. No, I see through this theory. But I think now it's important that we see it as a little bit like an overlap, right? So we can put on these different, we can look at it in an eclectic way where we take bits and pieces, or we're able to put those glasses on of the other theory and see the scenario through that theory. And that's what we were doing tonight. Does that make sense? Did that make sense? You know what I mean to say.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Yep. And then the last one I did was I did a thing to, wait, let me put it back on the stage. Add to stage. There we go. I did a contrast to Kohberger. No clear incel ideology. So at least in my opinion, do you think he was an incel yet?
I don't think he was an incel, but I definitely see the relationship that people want to bring, because you have this man who seems to also hate women due to experiences from his childhood. So I can see how they do that, but they never really talked about him wanting women or expressing the fact whether or not he was even a virgin or not. So I don't think we know enough about that, but I do see why people are comparing it. But I don't think
I see that too, but I don't see them as synonymous. Him and Elliot Rodger.
That way either.
And Harlot says it's bugging me that the book. So there's a new book out, and the book keeps talking about what about the incel theory with Kohberger and how he looked up to Elliot Rodger, but they don't really say what they are basing that on, at least so far. So I agree with you, Harlot. And not only do I agree with you, but I think Kohberger would be offended that anybody would think that he would look up to somebody else like that. Like, if anything, he's Papa Rodger, right? And I said this last week, you brought that sunning thing, like, was everything for me. So you guys, we went through and did his rap lyrics before, and one of his lyrics, he talks about how he's like, you know, done with being sunning and stuff like that. And here, Dr. Schultz and I were talking about it afterwards. Sunning is like, you know, hey, son, like, so you're looking down upon someone as if like you're the elder or the one with experience and they're the one under you. So I think by saying Papa Rodger, he now puts himself above and almost sees Elliot Rodger as like the son. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to
That's probably why they're talking about it so much, though, because didn't you say that there was like one of Elliot Rodger took a class, or Rodger
Kohberger took a class, and he studied Elliot Rodger.
Yeah. So again, you know how people are. They take one aspect and they run with it.
I totally agree with you. And not only that, right? So we talked about all these other things like the Bateman angle and like the Bundy angle. So I feel like just like with anything else, he just borrowed ideas from other killers. And I think Elliot Rodger just happens to be somebody else that he borrows some of those ideas from, or that he, he validates or feels the same as Elliot on, hence like the female thing and stuff, and not being able to get the girls that he wanted. So Claire says, I don't see Bryan as really wanting a relationship with a woman. I think he may have felt pressure to conform by appearing to date. So you would agree with that? So I was going to say, I think that in general, in general, I don't know that he had he had a need for interpersonal relationships, or at least he didn't think he did, which is part of this problem, and which probably made him vulnerable and susceptible to this online. I would say that it's, like recruitment almost. So he's a raging misogynist. I think Margaret Atwood and his comments about birthing hips. So he said to that girl, you have nice birthing hips, and women don't belong in upper education. It's different. It's a different philosophy than incel. Yeah. That's a good point, Suma. But that's another thing, right, Suma? So we found out later that line came from a movie. So, and Elliot Rodgers even took from like video games and movies. One of the movies that Elliot Rodgers pulls one of his, and it was like a scary line. I forget exactly what it was, but it came from the Santa Claus. Oh, it was like, I will destroy you or something, but it was like from the Santa Claus. So I think that with some of this, like the birthing hips, that was another example of Kohberger borrowing a line from a movie that he identified with. Harlot says he doesn't strike me as stereotypical incel. If there is proof that he was an incel, message boards or something like that, I want to see it. Also, Harlot, when Dateline and stuff with the leak and all, I didn't see anything that was Elliot Rodger related. Like they weren't like, we saw pictures on his phone of other females. We saw he was looking up Ted Bundy. He took the picture that looked like Bundy with the hoodie on. But we didn't see that with Elliot Rodger, right? So I think that's a big part of it too. Let's see. Okay, so Harlot says, I agree with that. I don't really feel like crime was even sexual. Oh, okay. I think it might be though. I get the knife phallic thing people talk about, but I feel like he was just interested in murdering for some reason. So although I do agree with that, Harlot, that I do feel like, because we know in his TAPA talks that he said, I feel like a criminal, but where's my record? So we do know that part of him does, want to know, like, and we know just from his survey that he did with, the online Reddit survey where he's asking people like all those questions about what did you feel like, da 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 da. So I think there is evidence to that. However, I also think, Harlot, look into pickerism. I did a short on pickerism. And after you see that, tell me what you think after that. I do think so. Pickerism, you guys, in case you don't know, is when somebody gets a sexual reaction or gratification from piercing someone's skin with sharp objects. So in this case, it would be a knife, which that it is phallic. If you look at the knife, right? What would you say? Do you think there was a sexual component? And again, if he was trying to get Maddie and she didn't want him, and part of that was him like retaliating, that also would go to.
Yeah, I'm on the fence between two ideas with him. One of them is I think he was killing something specific that we don't quite understand. So it was almost like these girls were a representation for something. And I'm not sure if it was sexual or his mother or the first girl who rejected him. But I do feel like
I do think that too. Yes, he had a prototype for sure. I agree. He had a prototype.
I also think it could be, and I've said this in our previous lives, that he was living in his own fantasy and building this fantasy up that he knew he couldn't have. But it wasn't necessarily sexual in nature, but it was like, I see them, I, should be able to be in their world, and built this relationship with them, and ended up killing the fantasy knowing that he couldn't have it, which could have a sexual.
Okay, so I see that same thing, but with a sexual edge to it. So feel like he couldn't have it.
Be a sexual basis. Yeah, there definitely could be.
I think so. But again, that's why we think different, and that's why people come and tune in, because we don't always have the exact same thought process. Yep. So you guys, I think that there was more of a sexual component than Dr. Schultz does. And again, I think the beauty here is that we both admit that we don't know him, so we couldn't really say to begin with. Like, we can't really ask him, right? So this is more coming on, our own understanding of the subject matter and experience.
Yep.
Anything else you want to say here?
Nope.
No. All right. So you guys, thank you so much for coming. Wait, let me see. So we haven't one or two more comments, and then I won't keep you forever. So comparing to Bundy, people forget that before he started luring women from outdoors, he assaulted students in-house. He took Linda Healy out of the house where there were 5 roommates. So Dr. Mercado actually said on a different show that he thinks, and he said this was just like speculation, but he wonders actually if Kohberger, like, let's say Kaylee wasn't in the room and Zen and Ethan didn't hear him and he just got to Maddie, like we all think that was his target. Dr. Mercado said, he thinks that he might have wanted to take her out of the house. I don't know about that though, because I feel like he went down a hill to get to the house. Like he parked up top and went down. So I don't know how he then walks back up the hill with her. I mean, I guess you can. Maybe I'm just not capable of carrying somebody uphill. But what would you think about that? Like him trying to take her out physically?
I didn't really get that.
I didn't get that either, because I feel like he was just trying to get away with it.
That was the goal. He did so much planning that if that was the goal, he would have accomplished that goal. And not just that, there was anything that was like, oh, he ended up having to kill these other people because he was trying to escape with her. That wasn't happening.
No, you're right. And I also think that let's say he did get her and like took her out successfully and nobody else knew. I think that would have left like a big, like, I feel like he wanted people to know, like he wanted to instill fear. Like he wanted people to know that somebody bad or somebody did something really bad, where I feel like if she would have just went missing, there might've been, some thought of like, what happened to her? Did she just get up and leave on her own accord? Like things like that. So you wouldn't have really known. I mean, unless you found her.
Well, there would have definitely been a fantasy sexual component if he did take her.
That is true.
So, but I feel like he was, for someone, he was a smart dude. So if you're, a little bit of an idiot, but you're still smart and you planned this, like you would have done what you wanted to do. And that didn't even look like that was his attempt. So.
Sarah, thank you, Sarah. Sarah thinks that the weapon of choice is important. So I think meaning that it shows that it is sexual in nature. So I don't know.
Well,
I guess we're going
to.
It's at least personal.
When you stab somebody, that's super personal. And so
it really is. It really is.
And that's where I feel like they're surrogates, because you didn't technically know these people, but yet you took such a personal route to end their lives that, there's so many other easier ways to do it.
Absolutely. Suma thinks that taking her was his intent. So again, I'm glad that I brought it up, because there are other people that might feel that. I just didn't see that at first. I mean, if that's what we found out, I wouldn't be like, no, like I'd be like, oh, absolutely. But right. So, and Suma says, don't discount ambiguous fear. So, and I think that that's true, right? So as sociopath or a psychopath can feel fear in the moment, like he doesn't want to get caught what he's doing. So I get what you're saying there. That's true. I don't know, though, if he was trying to take her out. What do other people think in the chat? Like, take her out, meaning remove her from the home. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, Dr. Bricata was saying something about Wawari Park. And there is a connection there to Ted Bundy. But there also is a connection here, because that's where he winds up saying that he was stargazing. So he does still bring in Wawari Park. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out eventually, hopefully. I'm not sure what the idea is based on, other than it's something Ted Bundy either did or planned on doing. Okay, I agree with that. Yes, that was strange that he didn't know them. Interesting theory. No proof of that. I don't know what there wasn't. Oh, that he was going to carry her out. Got you. I hear you.
I'm not sure if
so. Yeah, I don't know about. Yeah,
I'm not
right,
sure if he'll ever talk.
And not just that, even if he does talk, how do we know that he's necessarily telling us the truth?
That's true. We'd have to hear the story, but I'm not sure if he's ever going to talk, because he's kind of kept his innocence this whole time. And just because he doesn't want the death penalty, you decide to plead guilty. I think he would need it would be years down the road.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's another thing we have to see. Like with BTK and Bundy and stuff, they did have years of doing this stuff where we all believe that this was his first. Yeah. So, like you said, like years down the road, it might have been different, or his fantasy might have evolved, or things like that. But as of right now, I agree with that. Yeah. In his head, he knew Maddie. Oh my God, Mary, you get an A. So Mary says in his head, he took Maddie. The reason I'm saying you get an A is because, and we've seen this with other cases, I think it's important, you guys, to remember, and this is coming from somebody that puts themselves out there, but it's important to remember that when we put ourselves out there, we do take a risk in that somebody out there might start to take your posts as personal to them. And if you write something like, have a great day, everybody, I love you, they might be like, see, she told everybody that she loves me. Type thing. So somebody can have 1000% a relationship with you that you have no idea about. So I do think that that's important, but I also think that people shouldn't live in fear. So like, don't, I'm not going to not put myself out there. But I am cautious of that, or I'm cautious of the fact that that can happen. Right?
I'm cautious of that too. I'm even cautious with it in person. I've had a student try to want to be with me on different levels, that just because I was being nice and listening to her. And I was like, okay. And I had to take that to, she built her own idea.
After this, I'm going to text you to see, because I had a similar thing, and she like followed me to the university that we both worked at.
I think she was going through stuff because she is now a he. And so I think they were just going through this weirdness in their life and kind of latched on to me, but I had to nip it, because I don't know where those ideas would have gone to.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. You're right. We do have to all be careful of that stuff, and to tell our kids and all too.
Yeah.
Especially your son. He's like the son I never had. Like Anya just birthed him and raised him for his whole life, and then I just love him afterwards. He's like amazing, you guys. Her son is like amazing. Nice. Damien, if you're listening, I love him. Okay, so you guys, let's thank Dr. Schultz, obviously, for coming in today. And I'm assuming you're going to come back and see us again, because if not, people are going to have a parasocial relationship with me and kill me.
probably won't be for like about 2 weeks. Peyton's having surgery next week, but
I love your daughter too. I feel bad that I just like made Damien, whatever. You guys, I had Damien times in class.
Why you say it? Yeah,
I know, but I'm sure when I have your daughter, I'm gonna also, have a really thing there where I adore her.
Yeah. So, but I definitely want to come back because I love all of you.
Yes. So you guys, you heard her. Okay, she's gonna come back. Thank you guys so much all for coming here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Schultz, for coming. I'm still going to text you to see if it was the same student because I'm curious. Okay. I had a little bit of a thing too. Everybody's saying that they love you, Dr. Schultz. So there you go.
I love you guys too.
Literally, you're loved here. So there you go. All right. Thank you guys for coming here and love you lots. And I will see you soon. All right. How do I get out of here? Last time I wasn't ending the stream, so I have to make sure I do that. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming. Dr. Schultz figured out how to take herself off before I was able to, which is good. Apparently, the past few times, wait, look at this bang. What's happening right now? Apparently, the last few times that I was on, I had to go back on and end the stream because I wasn't doing it right. So now, hopefully, I'll be able to end the stream and take care of this bang because it's completely out of control right now, and it's annoying me. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. Sarah, I appreciate it. For all of the new members, if you got a new membership, it was Sarah. Thanks, Sarah, for her generosity. And we'll do a members only live soon. Again, I have to take care of this because it's literally bothering me. I should have sat like this the whole time. All right, you guys, I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Oh, thank you to Truth and Mark and Sarah. Thank you, my mods. You guys are the best mods in history. I promise. Please subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this so that I can continue to bring you content. Thank you so much.